The true final test in Nine Souls comes in the form of its final boss, Eigong, the mastermind controller that shapes and drives the presented story of the game forward. Eigong, to keep it straight with you, is brilliant and flawed, endlessly catchy and replayable, and incredibly difficult. It is also a considerably frustrating jump in difficulty compared to the rest of the game, which, let's be honest, is not easygoing. I enjoyed every single second of fighting this boss, even the moments where it beat my skull until the blood drips out from the wall by comboing me in ways I thought would not be possible to code into a video game. This comes mainly because the boss itself has a great balance in difficulty. It provides you interesting attacks that have multiple ways of approaching them, containing different strategies in which you are always searching for a better outcome for yourself by doing damage to the opposing foe while parrying or getting your way through a coming attack. This balance of combat never felt unfair, just incredibly difficult. In many ways, that is a good thing. The final test of a game that focuses a lot on combat and engaging in its fun zone of flow should come an incredibly interesting and different test that has 3 phases: red jump parry attacks, multiple red enhanced parry attacks, multiple combos, long range 4-hit combo that includes both normal and red parries, and you get the idea. Is this difficulty a justified jump when looking at what the game has taught you through enemy encounters, bosses, and exploration? No, I don't think so. This is mainly because I consider that the sum of progress that you have earned in the game before did not require you to master combat options in multiple ways and combos. For example, the enhanced parry. If you have not learned how to use that style of parry or mechanic in a consistent way, you will have a hard time dealing with attacks like the phase 2 4-hit combo that instantly kills you and brings you back to the beginning of the fight. Nine Souls gets the building of gameplay systems and ways of approaching the fun zone by engaging with the combat of a video game incredibly right. It provides a bunch of different in their own gameplay options such as normal parry in its held region, precise parry, talismans, jumping red attacks, invincible dashing dodge, enhanced parry, and so on and so forth. These characteristics are taught gradually during the natural progression of the video game through different enemies, like the enemy turret thingies that teach you to enhance parry to get them out, and the infected monsters teaching you the importance of talisman timing during the late game. This natural teaching process is also brilliantly used with bosses like Jiequan teaching you when to apply pressure during his healing phase move, but also G and the Fangs teaching you directional parries, requiring you to face the direction of the attack for the parry to be successful. These intelligent ways of getting the player to use their multiple options in order to increase familiarity with the system formula, but also getting them to use their kit later, is required in order to challenge the player at a subsequent time. This is how you get your players to utilize their multiple options and having fun in doing so, by getting them familiar with the moveset and rewarding them for discerning an attack and punishing it wisely. The game does this really well when it does do it, but I feel like it's not enough for having such an immense wall like Eigong at the end of the game. Difficulty in video games is not a problem when it's done right. The more important aspect is how you reach that difficulty and what you do as a developer in order to make the player utilize their options in a challenging way, forcing them to have fun. I think the developers nailed the natural progress like this already in the game, found earlier in the Lady Butterfly fight. That fight tests patience and learning of moves, understanding of the mechanics of your own moveset and the moveset that the boss has, creating a nice flow of fighting, asking for the player to express themselves. It does not feel forced. You have already been taught everything you need to know to challenge this foe. It is just difficult because it takes a while to adapt and learn how to overcome. Your ways of overcoming are already there. You just need trial and error and concentration to get through. On top of this, while not being as brilliantly mechanically designed as Eigong for creating that fast, responsive style of fighting, I think the Lady fight builds up tension and emotion even better than Eigong. The preceding story and atmosphere section is amazing. This boss cheats by having the advantage of requiring the player to in-depth exploration of a mind of a soul before fighting. This would have been really interesting for the video game for its whole runtime. Instead of gathering the story from the memory shards after you defeat them and collect their soul seal, you get to explore their mind palace, seeing different thoughts, fears, moments of distraught, and beautiful details before fighting, thus creating an even bigger emotion context. At the same time, maybe Lady Butterfly's soulscape mind would be ruined by not being unique to the whole game, much like the surprise dragon fight from Elden Ring being reused multiple times. What was the video about again? So my idea is you do not feel as prepared mechanically for Eigong as a test as you do for Butterfly. This is why difficulty for Eigong feels unnatural and almost too hard for some players. The game did not spend enough time to make sure you are prepared to face such a fight. While I do think the game does not take as much time as it needs to prepare you to utilize all of your mechanics that you need to defeat Eigong, I cannot help but wonder that maybe there were other intentions involved. Eigong could be seen as the boss who teaches you to utilize your entire moveset rather than making you show what you learned. I just consider that same decision to be a weird one. Why have a challenge that forces you to learn and perfect important game mechanics when that boss is your last test? Maybe replay value? Harder boss variants coming in the fight repeater in the post game? I found it to be unsuccessful than trying to make the player apply what they have already learned. At some point, you might ask yourself, why have bosses that teach you game mechanics after all? Shouldn't those game mechanics be taught to you already through previous zones and areas that contain powerful enemies that demand precise decisions from you, but also a harsh environment that puts you in a hard position? The area teaching you rather than the boss teaching you to get good. For a personal answer, I would say I do not dislike the idea of bosses teaching you game mechanics if those same ways of playing are used in the future following encounters. Through that, you can reward the player for actually learning the difficult upcoming mechanics rather than breezing through a fight with certain other tactics, because the learning process is going to make your time more enjoyable by being able to apply your knowledge to a difficult or challenging fight. For Eigong, on the other hand, the other following later zones or bosses or challenges do not exist. The game ends. Nothing extra to follow. You're trial and error until you learn, and the same process could not be fun for some people, even if I had fun. Bashing your head against the wall until some ideas enter your mind is not fun for some players, especially if the boss can reset you back to a long and difficult phase 1 almost instantly. I would have loved the game to introduce another area that is difficult and takes the time to learn you what you need for Eigong, only for Eigong to be the test, and then the game building upon that skill set that you acquired by throwing a couple more bosses at you. This probably does not work in any way for the story perspective for this instance. This way of writing the story, having you kill the main antagonist and continue the story for 5 to 7 hours after that, could feel unsatisfying. But I have an idea. Without going into too much detail, I would say that the game misses its mark with the Four Seasons Pavilion massacre at the end of the game. Characters that you care for and have spent a lot of time with tragically die, defending the more important characters for the plot, and so you get no dialogue or conclusion or emotional scene. I would like this entire final act or event to have played completely differently, especially because the game is really strong sometimes with its narrative and visual presentation. The whole process of presenting Heng as a collection of lost memories and regrets of Yi through lost signal messages, only to reveal that those messages were really sent from Penglai, was brilliant. The scenes with all of the souls at the end after Yi gets captured wraps the story in a very tight and satisfying way. Everyone made mistakes, none were at fault. Speaking from my own experience, these were exactly my thoughts while I scattered around the broken memories before claiming each individual soul seal, and having the game acknowledge that at the end felt really powerful. Good stuff. Back to Eigong now. Having said that the Four Seasons Pavilion narrative ended unimpressively for me, even with Abascus' death, I think a betrayal could have worked for extending the set of bosses preparing you for Eigong. I think having Kuafu sit in the Four Seasons Pavilion for researching and getting access to Rui's artificial intelligence for a hidden interest of Eigong, or some ally of her, could have worked pretty well into the theme of betrayal and confusion that the whole story circulates around Yi. Some interesting story moments could have happened too. Xuan may be balancing Yi's uncontrollable rage after discovering the true interest of his friend, tying their relationship in an interesting scene. Yi uses that rage to go after Kuafu and his allies, but falls back to Xuan's advice after defeating Eigong, leading to an even more powerful context for the end of everything. By using Kwafu's betrayal, the game would have cheated its way into some more encounters with bosses or zones before battling Eigong, putting Yi into one final difficult stretch. I have this feeling that the developers should have put more time into making you feel exhausted and angry before battling Eigong. This idea could work in my mind. Obviously, I am missing a lot of details and it is shallow, but take it as it is. This section is here more to show you could have written something for an extra zone or bosses before Eigong. There are obvious limitations during game development, and I do not expect such extensions from an indie game studio like Red Candle to be made. It just feels a little rough at the end for me compared to the rest of the great stuff. I love Eigong as a final test. I think you could consider brilliant design the way her attacks tie together and provide openings for experimentation and being aggressive. I just think it could miss some players because it is frustrating in context with the rest of the game preceding it. That miss could be prevented in future titles from Red Candle, titles for which I am very excited coming forward. Leave your thoughts below. This discussion for bosses is open and subjective. I would love to hear some opinions. Thank you for watching.